Welcome to WO50, Women Over 50 Embody Wisdom and Wellness.
Yes, you do, Eddie. You are the full embodiment of wisdom and wellness. Absolutely. So I'm here. My name is Corinne, and I'm here with my BFF, Eddie, who is full of that wisdom. And today we're talking about recycled and repackaged. Everything old is new again.
Oh, it was so much fun to talk about that. And
Yeah, I
then
mean,
realizing we're all recycled.
yeah. So it's like there's the obvious, like ideas, I think is how we sort of started on this. We were talking about how ideas and wisdom and, tools and stuff that we use, self-help tools have been around, and it just keeps getting recycled and repackaged.
Mm-hmm.
But then you brought up that our cells are constantly being recycled and renewed.
Yeah. And we talked about bell bottoms and flare jeans and
That's
vinyl
recycled.
records and books. And so we talked about, I think, anything and everything that could be recycled.
Yeah. And renewed, and the importance of that and how we use that in our day-to-day lives. I think you all will enjoy it. So continue to listen. Hello, Eddie.
Hello, Ken. What are you doing?
I'm just I was just showing you my new shirt. If you're on videos, my new shirt has little patches on it. It's a little ski shirt, even though I don't ski.
It's very cool. Is it recycled?
You're just gonna segue. That wasn't even a segue. Come on.
Yes, it was. Because everything, what? Yes. It could be. Is it brand new or
It's
is it
brand new. It's
upscale?
not recycled. So it's new again. Okay, so the title is Recycled and Repackaged. Everything old is new again, except for my shirt. My shirt's just brand new. Well, I guess it's recycled cotton, I mean,
It
cotton's,
is.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So basically, like, there's nothing new under the sun. That's what we were talking. I forget, it was a text thread that we had with your honey and us last week.
Yeah,
And
we were talking. Yeah.
something about. So, oh, I know he had sent us something about, like, I don't know. It's the basis of, like, you can become enlightened, with this app if you pay $1 a day or something like that.
Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, if it was so easy, it's like the verbiage has changed, right? Like the language around everything. It's like, okay, for that $1 a day, you get this information. And I'm like, geez, I had that 30 years ago, right?
Right. Right, exactly. And Deepak, I remember the first time that I met Deepak Chopra, or that I was at his seminar. I didn't meet him at first. I was at one of his seminars. And I remember the first thing he said. He walked out to the audience of like 1,000 people, and he said, "I'm not here to teach you anything." And I was like, okay, I just paid, how much money for it? And he goes, I'm here to help you remember what you already know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
You know,
ancient.
is
So much knowledge. It's so ancient, right?
we
It's
all have. That's how I started the retreat I was teaching last week too. I did a thing here, a Beyond Bliss Day with Minu, and I was, I said to all the young women on the retreat, the 1 day retreat, and I was like, and I said that statement that I didn't say was my statement, but I
mhm.
was like, yeah, this, like
Everything
somebody I
comes from
know.
somewhere. It's not my
But
statement. Yeah.
and I said, but I'm here to help you find out, all the answers for yourself. You already have all the answers,
Mhm.
because we tend to look out and contrast and compare and try to find the answers. Like, I see my young friends trying to, search insatiably for the epitome. I think we even did a podcast last year about it, but about the answer for everything. And it is, but it is new again. Like the old things, it's all recycled, but then
Mhm.
it's beautiful because it does come through a different vessel, different eyes. So,
Yep.
like, I took, the stuff that I learned about manifestation, and I wrote a book about it 30 years ago, and now they've got neuroscience about it, and the young people are really into that. And my book and that old stuff is old news. And,
Mhm.
you've done a lot of that too, with a lot of the things you've learned over the
Mhm.
years and shared.
Yeah. Well, I always say it's like a fresh coat of paint on some old stuff, right? Just a new perspective. It's like, even flare jeans are back, right? I'm so happy they're
I mean,
back.
I never let them go. I love them.
Skinnies are out and flares are in. I know I never let them go either. And yeah, things kind of come back around, what goes around comes around, and it's amazing that even books that get written, and you have like even my daughter when she reads something, and she's speaking something to me, and she goes, "Now, Mom, do you know blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a unique way of saying that because the way I read it, it's this way, and but they're the same. It's the same, but different." Yeah. It's still
Yeah.
good information. And you could have 20 different books saying the same thing. Be here now, be present, there's so many books out there just even saying that.
Yeah.
And we know that that's so important. But it's said in so many ways where we get these aha moments different times,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we could hear, like, how many times has that happened in your life? I remember Deepak, I worked with him for a long, long time. And so I would hear, kind of have the same jokes. I'd hear similar lectures. I'd hear a common thread because he never planned anything. He'd be getting on stage and he wouldn't even know what the topic was. But one of us would have to tell him where he was and what the topic was. He was so present and not, focused on
Yeah.
details. And so, but he would have, similar stories that he would tell. And I remember every year, like I was with him for several years, I would understand sort of the same information that he was recycling and saying, and I would understand it at a deeper level, at a deeper and deeper level. So we might, and they even say in marketing, it takes at least 3 times to hear something before we actually hear it or get it or want to act on it.
Hmm.
So it's like we're constantly processing and that's why to understand when we're trying to communicate with somebody that we can only do our best to communicate something. And that was something at Christmas time that I was like, specifically my brother was like, wow, he really believes that everything he thinks is real and that his point of view is actually, sort of law. God, almost God, like he has so many opinions and judgments about people. And I just sit back and watch and I love my brother, but it's
Hmm.
like, he's like the epitome of thinking that his reality is just the way it is for everybody.
Yeah. It's
It's,
interesting, isn't it? That
yeah,
that when you just take a minute to sit on someone else's perch and go, "Oh, I don't think they're thinking the same way I'm thinking," and they're not. So this
nobody can.
going, nobody can. So it's like even just looking at the books that you pick up and read. And I remember, you know, years ago reading books that I just loved. I was always seeking information. I was curious about life. I always was. And when I pick them up now and read them, it's with different eyes, different ears, a different feel, a different like knowing and not knowing. And how come I didn't get that then? It's
Yeah,
just that, gosh, it was so obvious.
yeah. Yeah, isn't that interesting when something or like a book? Have you ever read a book? Like, because I really am interested in mostly like autobiographies and so I remember reading Autobiography of a Yogi, for instance. And the first time I read that, I was like, I soaked up every page, but it took me a long time to read because it's a really thick book and it's kind of like a spiritual classic. Did you ever read it?
Which one?
Autobiography of a Yogi?
Oh gosh, yes, I got this one over here.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So it's such a great,
Yogananda.
yeah, Yogananda. It's such a beautiful book, and I read it
I think
probably three
you
times.
you introduced me to that book
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah. It was one of my. It was what it brought me to India. So I read
And I
that
think
book.
I think that was the book that Steve, I always say his name wrong, Jobs, gave to all his people
Yes, that's right.
that worked, right? Is that
Yeah.
correct? Am I,
Yep.
am I
Yep.
correct in saying
Yep.
that? Yeah.
Yep. That's
If I'm
right.
not, I'll just Google it later, but I think,
No, I'll put that in the show notes because he carried that around everywhere. Autobiography of a Yogi, and it's just a spiritual classic. And
Mhm.
so I remember the first time reading it, I was just like so enthralled. It took me a couple of months to read it because it's a very thick book, and I wanted to absorb. I kept going back over it and and getting different
Yeah.
things out of it. And then, 5 years later, I read it again. I remember the second time I read it, I was in India at the time. So that was the book that brought me to India. Then I
Mm.
read it in India and I kind of like zoomed through it. And all the ideas all of a sudden seemed basic to me. Not basic's a judgment, but it's like, it was just like I was just reminding me sort of what I had learned already. But the first time it was all just like, whoa, my mind was
Yeah.
being blown, you
Yeah.
know?
And there's a video on that too. There's a documentary
Yeah, there's Awake.
about
It's
when he
called
came.
Awake.
Yeah, when he
Yeah.
came to New York and how he was just this odd character, and it was.
In the 1920s or early 1930s, he came off the boat from India and he was a
Mhm.
young monk. So it's called Awake and it's on
Yeah,
Netflix. And I'll put
yeah,
that in the show notes too. So that's based on the autobiography of the yogi, but it's very different at the same time. Like you could definitely watch the movie and then read the book and find a lot of different things. There's a lot of details they
yeah.
couldn't put in, but it's both are really good. There's some great scenes in that movie.
Well,
Just
there's a
yeah.
lot of really good stuff coming out. Like I like just even seeing the refresher page on everything. That's kind of what I call it. It's like the fresh coat of paint, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that looks better with that blue. It's like you haven't watched this yet because I just mentioned it to you. But Enigma with Aaron Rodgers and the story, and it's up to date, up to now current and
He's a football
2020.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to like, and I think a lot of people, because I'm not a big football person, but even though I worked with the Titans and some of that in the past when I lived in Nashville and got into up here, he's into all the sports and he got me into football, watching it anyway, but I watch the good games and when it's exciting. And we were at one of the games actually in London just October past, and Aaron was playing. And at the game, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I had a little bit of a judgy in me because I'm going, just look at him now. And I'm reading stuff about him and I'm thinking he had some arrogance but because he's an amazing quarterback, right? And I watched Enigma yesterday and went, my gosh, I heard his story and his life and how quick we are to judge. But he agreed too. He did have a bit of arrogance and he had an ego falling away. And he went into holistic studies and he started, digging deeper and integrating medicine after his last injury, which knocked him out of
Hmm.
play for a bit. And it shook him. He said, and to go back and watch how many times his ego fell away, because he said, he was humbled so many times, like waiting for to be picked, and then he couldn't stand it anymore. He got up when he was a young quarterback, right, waiting for the, I guess they, whatever they call it, the match. And he was like one next to last or the eighth out of 10 getting his placement, and he thought he would be in the top 5, and he said his ego took such a hit. And just hearing the story and the tools as a 40-year-old man now, the tools he's put into place and how he words it. And he says, my language has changed, my acceptance of the feminine, every person has to experience these different ways to dig deeper. And I went, that is so beautiful. He's now my new favorite quarterback.
He went from being your least favorite to your most favorite after he
Yep.
had more of an awakening, though.
Yep, everything
Yeah.
old comes new again.
Yeah.
See, I recycled all the old thoughts and
That
because we
too.
do that, right? We
Yeah.
do that with people. We do that with clothes. We do that with books. We do that with life.
Yeah.
And we give up sometimes or we get a judgment into ourselves and displace it and then we stick to it. We're not, nope, it's not going anywhere.
Hmm.
And then, man, we allow the shift to happen. And I'm going, I like this recycling bit. This is
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Being open to looking at things in a new way. I mean, even your honey said when he saw that enigma, he was like, this is what, you guys do, you and Corinne do in your
yeah.
retreats.
Yeah. He said, this is what I walk out on sometimes. This is the good part. Yeah, because when you're ready for it, you're ready for it. And not everybody, gets it the same way. This is why when we pass along ancient wisdom, we're all doing it in a different way. It's the same. We're hoping the messaging, the interconnectedness of us all, what affects me affects you. I don't know what we call it, Corinne. I don't even have any words for it anymore.
Well,
right?
we talk about here on quite often how we have a lot of differences. Obviously, we're all walking a different path in life. There's over 7 billion people on the planet. And each one of us is looking through different eyes that has a different past and a different communication. So you literally cannot walk in another man's shoes. All
That's
over
right.
7 billion of us. However, we also have more in common than we do have differences because we're all alive on the planet here now in this time.
Mhm.
And maybe, it's different than, our experience is very different. People living in India, Brazil, but, as a whole, like, especially now that the world is smaller with social media and news and,
Mhm.
drones and, us knowing the news of everywhere immediately, we can
Yep.
see what's going on. So we do have things in common. And there are basic things that us humans, we all feel pain. We
Mhm.
all want to live a happy, fulfilled life. And so a lot of the information I feel like that we want. So whenever you share, that's the thing is I had a songwriter friend once of mine that told me whenever you write from your personal experience, not from somebody else's trying to share, but from your personal experience, people are going to resonate with it because we're all the same. But you write from authentic. So I know the difference between that was a big advice and what I do my best to do at any given point in time in my life is a friend of mine once said, only teach and share what you already know.
Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes, especially when you learn like a yoga technique or it's like, or I've been on, or I see somebody on retreat and then they'll try to share it before they really are embodying it fully. And I think we've all done that at some point. That
Yeah.
was when I first started teaching yoga teachers to teach, I questioned that in myself. I'm like, I want this amazing experience that my teacher gave me, and I'm not ready to do that yet. Like, I don't have the experience. And so all of it's through our filters that we're
Mhm.
sharing and teaching. It's everything has a filter on it. So all we
Mhm.
can try to do when whether it's sharing in a course or sharing over coffee with a friend or sharing with our spouse or with our children, is try to be as authentic as possible as sharing from what we truly know and what
Mhm.
we've come to from our experience. And yet still the information we pass on, ultimately we have to learn on our own, but it is helpful. So I know that
Mhm.
I've been helped by teachers that I've listened to before. And then, yes, I get more out of it by touching it myself rather than the ears of hearing it. But,
Mhm.
but we still share our knowledge. We're storytellers. That's what we are.
Mhm. And I love when I have these new um, naturopaths or young adults going into the holistic field and they come in with to share their knowledge. And when I sit and listen to them, gone is that, oh yeah, I know that. I know that. It's already in there. I go, this is this is so refreshing. It's like hitting the refresh or the reset button on myself because it's this yes, it might be the same information, but it just brings up new stuff. It just keeps you current rather than, the same oil. And that's our point is everything old is new again. But it should be received a little easier sometimes. When I hear something new and there's from years ago when you, like, I got to beat around to the point now I'm trying to make. When you hear something that you've learned years and years ago and you think that's the only way it should be done, our technology has changed so fast that, kids don't even write anymore. It's all on the computer, it's all pressed, it's all buttons. But this everything old, new again. Well, the beautiful thing about writing is that when you do cursive or you write, it's calming. It slows the brain down. Like there's these benefits of slowing it down and absorbing the information. So we go, now we have this new technology and we're getting this information really fast. So we have to be careful with all that too, because it's coming in so quick, right? That where's it landing? How
Mm-hmm.
where's it landing? Like and
Mm-hmm.
and are we ready for that amount of information? I said to my granddaughter the other day, she was watching something, and when I walked in the room, she flicked it off the TV, flicked off the computer, and I'm like, "What are you watching?" And they have parent controls on it and all that, and I'm like, "Was that age appropriate?" She goes, "Well, yeah, like we have for 7 to 9 or something like this." And I was like, "Well, were you watching the 9-year-old video?" And she goes, "Maybe, I don't know." I said, "But your brain is 7. Because once you see something that's not age appropriate, honey, you can't undo it. You can't unsee it."
So sweet. So sweet. So true.
And
Yeah.
now, so with all the knowledge and the books and how to raise your children today compared to 30 or 40 years ago, it's like, are you watching? What are you watching? Give me that TV. That's getting unplugged. It's like, it's so funny how we handle things, right? It's so different. Yet
Yeah.
it's the same message. We're trying to get the same message, but it's landing different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's recycled. It's new information, but it's old information.
Yeah. And even us as people, have you ever noticed that as people, it's like, I don't know. One example was I read my diary years ago. I had started writing a diary when I was, I don't know, maybe 15 or 14. And I didn't stuck to it. I think I only wrote a quarter of it, but I wrote, about a quarter of it. And so I'd found it in my 20s. I found it
Hmm.
and I read it and I was like, wow. And then I found another journal from my early 20s. So it was like there was like a 6 or 7 year gap or something. And I read, and I was saying the same, I was saying the same stuff. I
Yeah,
was
and
like,
did you think it was you that wrote it? Like when I read some of mine, I'm like, did I write half of this? This doesn't even sound like me. When you go back like 10 years, and
yeah.
I went, I don't want to read this shit anymore. And I just burned them all. Where I went, my God, if I ever died like today and my daughter, and I didn't have these burned, my daughter would go, my God, Mom, what were you processing?
And yet, we're all processing stuff. So it might be
Yes.
helpful for them to listen how messed up you were or how confused you were or how whatever you were. Like that's the way I
Just
think about
stories.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, they're just stories, but there's
Just
nothing
stories.
new. It's like we're all humans. We all are
Yeah.
going through the same stuff. We all have the
Yep.
same emotions. Like when I meet with young women, which I love working with young singers, like that's my favorite. I happen to have been so blessed to work with like three, four, five of them, something like that now over the past 6 years. And I can relate because that was me. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of things similar that we have. And can relate to the feelings that they're having and the emotions and their desires and their pains. And
Yeah.
it helps me to have empathy for
Hmm.
them. I feel for their pain so much. And
Yeah.
yet I know, and I try to convey that to them how, it helped me be a better songwriter. It helped me get into spirituality. It helped me to become my man picker, realize that how broken it was and to take responsibility for that. And so I'm able to help them to see sometimes by telling stories about how I've done, or sometimes by helping point them to inward to their own wisdom. Hopefully it always
Mhm.
goes back to their own wisdom, but sometimes it is through storytelling. That's why Jesus was, taught in parables, and so did Buddha. And, we do learn because when we hear a parable, when we hear a story, we can place ourselves there. Like because we start to visualize it when somebody's telling a story. And
Mhm.
so sometimes, not all the time, sharing a story is appropriate, as long as we know how to spin it back around. But that's because we are all the same. And then I'm just spinning it away, and they're coming in with their experience that I recognize so deeply, so
Y-
familiar.
You know what? I always get that little hit that comes in. Is that to me, I'll sum it up. It's the universe's ultimate remix,
That's
right?
great. That's
The
great.
universe's
Yeah.
ultimate remix, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Making a mixtape.
Yep.
Universe's
Mixtape.
mixtape,
Mix.
the playlist. Yeah.
Well, it's like even the 80s music is back. We have electro and it was
Yeah.
synthesizers and all that back then. And sometimes you hear a song and I'll go, "Oh my God, that's such and such from whatever, Paul Young from the 80s or whatever." But it's not. It's new. It's
Yeah.
new. It's brand new. And then we're getting these beautiful flavors layered on. There's the mixes of country with rock and now music is just music, right? But you're hearing like stuff, remixes, you're hearing stuff, chords, progressions that remind you of another song, but it's a new song.
Well, they say that's how Ed Sheeran won a court case. Is there was somebody that was suing him for a song that they said it was the same chords and some similar melody. So ultimately, Ed Sheeran showed up in court and he brought his guitar. You can look this up online, and he shows somebody. I think it was Howard Stern. He showed him what he did, and he said he played a bunch of like Beatles songs, and he said all these songs have the same chords in them, and he played. There's three chords, so E, F and G, say E, F and G, or yeah, something like that, and you can make an infinite number of songs through these three chords. And he kept showing how a same chord progression would be, and he played the same chord progression and he sang 10 different songs over the same chord progression. And that's how he won the court case.
Yeah. And now look at what's happening with all AI. You can line different songs up and match them. And they, go one into the next, or they overlay them. And it sounds really cool, but it's, I don't know. It's a lot. It's
Yeah, it's a beyond our computing human brain, because the computers are much faster, and yet, like they do, computers, AI does create new things, but they do they recycle and repackage too. That's what AI does, because it has because we've input all the information. It's taken all the information on the internet and everything. There's been a lot of different things and so it's that's why sometimes it can have human qualities, because it's gotten the information from us, and that's recycled and repackaged too.
yeah.
So there's as the future goes on, it's going to be interesting to see about AI and creativity, because and I stay positive, like I love to work with AI. I've got our friend Kathy from Atlanta. I've got her, and I've got her totally into AI. She uses it as like a business assistant, and
Oh,
throws
wow.
ideas and has it do spreadsheets and helps her with math and
Wow.
with all her making of all her different creams and lotions and stuff, and
Wow.
keeps her recipes and does all this stuff. She uses it, and I was like, wow, you go, Kathy, because Kathy's not the big most technical person, but last time she
Yep.
was here, I kind of showed her, and she's
Wow.
run with it. I was so proud of her. We were here; she came and helped for Bliss Day, so she was just
Yeah.
here last week, and we were watching the Golden Globes afterward, just to wind down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And she was trying to like get her phone up to, because she had a plan that I didn't have to watch. She had YouTube TV, and so she wanted to stream it on my TV. I'd never even heard of YouTube TV, and I consider myself quite technical. Kathy's not the technical one, but here we go. She was
Yep.
showing me something, and she was able to do it. She got it figured out,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Wow, you go, Kath, you
Yeah.
go."
My grandkids taught me that, the YouTube TV.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
I'm like, oh, maybe you can watch Corinne and I.
yes,
Yeah,
they
they
could.
did. They
Yeah,
did. We brought it up, and yeah, there's so much. There's so
so
much.
much. There's so much.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say something, but it was gone. Can't
Well,
remember what
it'll
I was.
come new again. Just-
It'll come
It'll
around
it'll
again.
just come right. It's the
It's
circle of
just
life.
recycled.
We're all just recycled material.
We are. That's another thing
Literally.
Deepak used to say, is that every breath you take was, breathed by Buddha and Jesus, and we're all made out of recycled crap, basically.
It's
All
pretty
the stuff
amazing.
turns into the earth and then turns into the food that we
Hmm.
eat, and it's
Yeah.
it's kind of wild. And it's wild then that we don't consider, or we do, you and I do consider ourselves part of nature, but when people, you know, don't realize they're part of nature, like
Oh,
We're
you
all
just
so interconnected.
oh, I always loved the saying Rumi when he said you're the drop in the ocean and the ocean in a drop. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite sayings. And I when I read that years ago, I was like, my gosh, yeah, like you're everything, right? You're everything in that drop. The ocean is there it is in that drop. That's the ocean.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it it puts it all in perspective and it's just, just everything you hear each day, it's not new material.
Yeah,
Like,
there's nothing new. It's all recycled, and yet it is new for you because it's a new moment.
yeah, and this is a new day. This is a new time in your life. You at 20 it felt different. At 30, at 40, at 50,
Hmm.
right? On up 60 and then it'll
Hmm.
be 70 and 80 and 90, if it all
Hmm.
continues. It's this cycle, the circle of life. It's a
Hmm.
beautiful thing. And
Hmm.
we could talk all day about bell bottoms and vinyl records and everything coming or back around again, the hairstyles and the mullets and the right. It's kind of yeah, you
And
be you.
the roots are coming back now too. Because remember with Sex in the City, that was in, and I always had the dark roots because Alexito used to draw me. It's a black streak in the middle of my head.
My daughter was really little at one time. Yeah, I remember, and she drew this picture, and and I went, "Who's that?" And it was all this blonde hair, and it had this big, thick brown line in the middle. And she said, "It's Corinne. It's her hair." I was like, "Corinne goes what?"
And I knew when I saw it, I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what it was.
And she still is very detailed oriented.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah,
coming around because that was really in with Sex in the City with Sarah Jessica Parker. She always had that look, and it's coming around again. So
yeah.
for those ladies that don't like to dye their hair all the
You're in
time,
style. You're back
yeah,
in style.
yeah,
Yes, it's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
So it's fun.
Mm.
We'll be like that too, Ken. Everything old is new again. Old is not obsolete. It's just waiting for an encore performance.
Oh, and this is fun. So maybe the next time, I'm not sure how many I have in the hopper right now to post. This is probably going to get posted. My guess is towards the end of January, beginning of February. So you might even be here, and we got a lot of fun things planned. In fact, I wanted to run a couple things by you before we say goodbye. So one thing is, I feel like I want to interview more people this year. What do you think?
Yeah, me too. Me
Like, I'd
too.
love to have like Eddie. I'd love to have Eddie on.
I'm
I'd love
here.
to have.
I've just been recycled. Here I am.
It was
I'm
funny.
right back in the mix. Here I am.
I'd love to have Kathy on from Atlanta because she's
That'd be
just such a
fun.
wonderful, wise
Oh
woman.
yeah, and
And
I'd
then,
love to see her. Yeah, that'd be
yeah, you'd
great.
love to see her. And
Hmm.
I know you wanted to have maybe the gal from Seven Fathoms, I think,
Oh
maybe
yeah,
on.
Courtney. It'd be great to
Yeah.
have Courtney on. We have some fun news to share, so that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we'll watch, and then also our plan is I made some delicious desserts last night. Now they are chocolatey, so Eddie, I know you have to limit your chocolate, but what I feel like I want us to do is like I'm really interested in you've been into healthy cooking forever because you have to cook healthy because of your
Because I love it.
sensitivities. Well, you love it because of your sensitivities, so it started
Yes.
that, and you've made it yummy. You've made gluten-free yummy and stuff, and I because of the keto stuff I went through, I love like really looking at different recipes, whether it's savory dinner or a dessert, and making it somehow healthy, not sometimes using just keto sugars, but like today or last night, I made a dessert, like, and I used like 3 or 4 different recipes, and then I made my own thing. So I made a healthy Twix bar.
Oh wow.
And I decided to
Good
make
for
it because
you.
it's kind of a thing on Instagram, but then I was like, I don't really like those ingredients. So I made it in a muffin tin,
Hmm.
and so it's almost like a little turtle almost. So the
Oh yeah.
bottom was the base of the lemon tarts that I make really. So that's almond flour, coconut flour, and then a mix of coconut oil and butter. So it's like
Hmm.
almost like a little cookie, just like a Twix bar on the bottom.
Yum.
Then I made caramel made out of dates, and it was made out of dates and tahini
Yum.
and vanilla. Okay. That was
Gosh,
yummy.
so
So then I
good.
put a layer of that. So the cookie got baked in the oven. Then I put a layer of the caramel. Then I put a bunch of nuts. I put some pecans and walnuts that were already soaked and dried. Then I put a layer of chocolate on top, like a dark, like Linder chocolate that has
Wow.
no sugar in it.
Yep.
And I could do it anything for you. I could do something else for you. You can do a little chocolate now. And so we popped those out of the muffin tins today, Colleen and I. But into it, I was like, okay, that's a winner. That's really yummy.
Ooh, and we could do a podcast with those healthy desserts and
Well, it would be
you know,
many episodes. Like I feel like we could
yeah.
do a lot of episodes of taking classic and like I want to work on Nanaimo bars because I'm bound and
Yep.
determined to get Nanaimo bars in a healthy
Yep.
way. There's a
Yes.
few online, but none of them look like they're that great. And
Yes.
so I know I could do better. And so
Because you're looking at it as, the food, it's food we're putting in. We're not
yeah,
putting
not
in white sugar,
processed.
white flour.
Right.
You got dates
Not
that are high in
processed.
iron and the good fats and the nuts, all good for your brain. Like that's what I love when we do our food together. There's no junk.
Yeah.
It's not dead food.
Yeah.
Every morsel of food, most of the time that we eat, we're either feeding our mind, our gut, or our microbiome.
Yeah.
And at this point in our lives, we have to focus on, like putting good stuff in.
Yeah,
We
because when you're
got to.
young, your body is a little more forgiving. When you're like a teenager in your 20s, a little bit in your 30s,
Yep.
your body's forgiving. So if you get, have some drinks or
Mm-hmm.
you eat poorly, your body, all your organs are working great for the most part, not everybody. And
Yep.
but I even know young 30-year-olds, like late 20s, when they can't eat as much pizza as they used to or
Mm-hmm.
as much ice cream and stuff. And so you can feel the difference in your body. Like Eddie and I can for sure feel. I was sick about 8 years ago, and I could tell when I smelt something like my body would weaken.
Yeah.
So
And there's that whole thing about the everything old new again. Like when your body is ill, you're diabetic or you got other health issues going on, and you make a few changes and your cells regenerate, sure they're becoming new. So
yeah,
you're getting
constantly.
constantly feeding in good information. So you're slowing down the cellular disease process. The cells go rogue, right? They want the junk food. You get cravings for certain things. We know alcohol and cigarettes, and there's already
And
labels on these
Doritos.
things. Yeah, these food they're not healing the body.
No,
And we know as we get older, we're slowing down. We know our cells are,
they're a
kind
little
of
tired.
they're tired and they
They're a little
need some
tired.
help. Yeah, so if we can help, with the recycling in there, take out the garbage, recycle what you can, like, and put in some good stuff. And
Yeah,
that's
like
thought, right?
yeah,
Food.
thoughts, food, everything, relationships, emotions, and not to say that, being angry is never going to happen, but there's right anger and
Hmm.
there's right sadness. Like there's times to be appropriate for all these different emotions, but then staying in some of these, whether it's staying in
Yeah.
happiness all the time, that's not realistic, or
No.
staying in sadness all the time, that's, not sustainable.
Yeah.
And so really, and so that's what I feel like when I ate that sweet tonight.
Hmm.
I felt like energized. You need food that's energizing for
Yeah.
you, emotions, all the stuff we're talking about that's energizing, that's life giving and not life taking away.
That's right. That won't make you crash. You were hungry, you did that, you had it, it's yummy. But if you had a real Twix, you would be crashing.
Oh, I would feel probably sick for 24 hours if I had a real
Yeah.
Twix.
Yeah. And people don't even realize it. They go, "Oh, my stomach's sick." Like, what did I? They don't question. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people don't question, what did I eat or who have I been hanging out with? Because sometimes that's, our peeps influence how we
Yeah.
do it too, how we
Yeah.
eat, how we take care of ourselves, and that's why we love that you guys listen to us. Who's ever listening? And I forgot there's people listening, Corinne, for a minute.
I know we forget, but that's what a podcast is. It's about listening into a private conversation. So that's you and I are basically our private conversations every week. So look, come on, invite more of your friends.
Yes, and sometimes we might say something there that you go, "Whoa, I'm going to watch that," or "I'm going to read that," or "Oh, that's a great reminder." So it's a little refresh button, yeah, I'm glad
That's
we're
what it does.
here.
Yeah, and that's what it does for you and I, Ed. That's why we love one of the reasons why we love each other so much and we love connecting is that it's life-giving, it's life-affirming, it's positive, it's a beautiful part of our lives. And it helps support me, it helps support you, like our friendship and our sharing.
Yeah.
And then we share it with others, and that's it. And it takes effort to do that. Like Eddie and I don't live close at
No.
all.
Nope.
You know? But
Nope.
we make the effort, and Eddie's going to be here. All of February we'll be together, and we'll do a lot of fun filming. And
We're gonna have lots of things to talk about and share, and
Yeah.
who knows, we might even be in the kitchen doing something.
yeah, that's the plan. That's
Figure
the
it
plan.
out.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, Ed. Well, I hope you have a good week.
You
And love you guys. Thank you.
too. Love you guys. Thanks for listening. Till next time.